This is the Field of 68. I'm Vince Wolfram.
I'm JoJo CAVANAGH in Auburn, Alabama. And this
is Straight Out the Jungle. Welcome back to Straight Out the Jungle. My name is Vince Wolfram.
And I'm JoJo CAVANAGH.
And Auburn North in Nashville helped number one Auburn hold off Vanderbilt 80-68 on the Commodores' home floor in Memorial Gymnasium, avoiding the Tigers' first losing skid of the season. And JoJo, for an away game, the Auburn crowd was there.
Yeah, I knew it was going to be because the Auburn family in Nashville is huge. I feel like second to Auburn, it is close between like Atlanta and Nashville for like the amount of Auburn people that move there after graduation.
Yeah, you know it's the real deal when they've got a name for themselves. When you call them Auburn North and they've got their own Twitter accounts and everything, that makes it as real deal as it possibly can be. And then the Auburn North, they help Auburn get off to a pretty quick start. A 15-0 run to start the game certainly cued off a nice start for Auburn coming off a loss, its second loss of the year. So to get that fire of a start certainly helped. And I think it was partly because of the Auburn North that were hanging out in Nashville tonight.
Yeah, I agree. There were a couple people that were like, Auburn was angry after Florida because to come out on the road against a team that beat number 6 Tennessee and number 9 Kentucky at home. I mean, this Vandy team has already surpassed wins from last year and SEC wins already, and we're into SEC play. So, but to start off 15-0, again, we'll get to the point where Vandy comes back, but that start was cool for Auburn fans to see, especially those who slept outside in the jungle for that loss, and then to come out on the road in Vandy with a 15-0, that looked really cool on the little lower third score box.
Yeah, you're not kidding. Definitely a refreshing sight for those Auburn fans. And another refreshing sight, see a new guy in the starting lineup. We haven't had that too many times this season. Chris Moore got the start today instead of Chad Baker-Mazara, who Bruce said throughout the week was pretty banged up after the last couple of weeks of short turnarounds. So he didn't start tonight, but Chris Moore got the start instead. And he helped the Auburn Tigers get off to a quick start. He got a bucket off a second chance opportunity that started just this line of fire for Auburn to begin the game. Then it led to a Johni getting a layup. Then Denver Jones hits 2 threes after coming off a terrible game against Florida and followed up with a Miles Kelly 3. Just a very fast way to start the game. A couple of threes on the board, 15-0 or 13-0, just like that. 4 minutes into the game, advantage Auburn, and it came pretty quick.
Yeah, the 13-0, that Miles Kelly 3, back-to-back Denver threes, then the Miles Kelly 3 led to a Vandy timeout, but then Auburn just came back into HUD, made it 15-0. So that was a great start from Auburn, especially Chris Moore starting out first points of the first half and first points of the second half for him. So in his first start of the season, that was cool to see. But just Denver Jones, like you mentioned, especially after that Florida game, coming in and scoring that many points and back-to-back threes nonetheless in the first few minutes was good for Auburn.
Denver Jones surely helped Auburn get off to that fiery start. I know Chris Moore got the first bucket, but Denver wasn't too far behind him. Coming off the game like he did against Florida, not his best game of the season. Gosh, he came out and he was just on a tear. He beat his point total against Florida in just 4 minutes because he hit 3 points first and then hit another one as well. So I thought Auburn was much better with Denver Jones on the floor tonight. He was more in control, and you can tell. Second 3, he shot it, and he started walking backwards. He had already turned his head. He knew it was money. Seeing Denver back in his mode, back in his mojo, that confidence is there. I think there was some noise about him after the Florida game. Why is he on the floor? What does he bring? And if you aren't a bozo, you know exactly what he brings. It's defense, and it's offensive, connecting the team and scoring when he needs to. That's exactly what he did tonight. Defensively, I thought he was great. Offensively, we wouldn't be in the spot that they were at the end of the game or at the very beginning of the game without the work that Denver Jones did earlier. They were certainly better with him on the floor. He had 4 threes, 14 points in the first half to lead Auburn. And in the second half, too, he started the second half off exactly where he left the first one with a 3. He's tied a season high with 5 threes in the second half. And then he was just in the ball game. We found him sort of lurking in spots where we typically see Denver that maybe we haven't in those games where he's had not so great of performances. Dylan gets the tip off the Johni free throw, and there's Denver. Gets it, floater, money. In little moments like that where you can tell Denver Jones wasn't in those spots in the last couple of games, in those games where Auburn fans believed that he struggled the most, he was there tonight. It seemed like he had clicked back into DJ form like we had seen most of the year, which I thought was a fantastic sight.
Yeah, coming off that Florida game and all of the noise that just me and you don't agree with, not having his best game. We know Denver Jones can play. Clearly, he shut up that noise tonight. Leading scorer, 21 points, had 14 points, 4 threes before halftime. Now, he did have 4 turnovers in the first half, so that's definitely something to look forward and watch this film and clean up after that. But then coming in the second half to have 7 points in the second half, perfect from the floor and cleaning up, having 0 turnovers. So already that improvement from the first half to the second half, but just especially hearing all of that nonsense noise, which Denver Jones shut that up with 21 points of his own. And we don't win that game without Denver Jones. And we also don't win this game without Chaney Johnson. Chaney Johnson had 20 points. So in a game where Johni Broome had 2 points in the first half, he eventually comes back. But Chaney Johnson, he's usually the one that steps up when Auburn needs it. Like when Johni Broome goes out against Georgia State, he steps up. When Johni Broome goes out against, what was the other game that he stepped up? Mississippi State, when Johni Broome wasn't playing, he steps up. And Johni Broome didn't really have the best first half. He comes back in the second half just a little bit. But Chaney Johnson really stepping up when Auburn had a 15-0 lead in the first half. Vandy comes back and it's 49-48. Auburn was down 1. He nails a 3. So that just gives Auburn the lead. But then he goes on to score 9 straight points. So from one player to score 9 straight points, it was the Chaney Johnson 9-0 run that led to an Auburn 12-2 run that gave Auburn the lead eventually to continue that lead throughout this game. So we don't win this game without Denver Jones, and we certainly do not win this game without Chaney Johnson, especially during that crucial point where Vandy took that lead and just not Auburn took, you could say Auburn took over. Really, Chaney Johnson took over.
Yeah, that's really what it was. Once he boosted the Auburn lead to 57-49 with like 11 minutes remaining, you kind of knew where the game was going to fall. But a moment I thought in the first half, even Broome and Chad both weren't having their typical performances. They weren't giving as much as they usually were. They had 3 misses. They were 1 for 6 through 15 minutes. Vandy was winning the boards in the first half. You were waiting on Dylan and Chaney to get subbed in the game. And Chaney, I mean, there was a 10-0 run for Vanderbilt in that time. In 2 minutes and 30 seconds, brought the score within 4. Dylan gets subbed in. Chaney gets subbed in. Chaney misses. Dylan board. There's an immediate impact of those two. And Chaney found that level of patience, like I talked about in the last episode. He found that today, and he found a way to control the game from his spots. He can control the game in a majority of different ways, but tonight he made it his, and he did it from his spots. Every time he caught it in the mid-range or he caught it in that paint, that 4 or 5 feet from the basket, JoJo, you knew exactly what was going to happen. It was going up and it was going in. And I thought his second half, he just had a monster second half. He was the best player by a mile in the second half for both teams. It was obvious. They wanted to give the ball to Chaney. Those offenses that they installed in the games where Broome was out seemed to be the plays that they were running for Chaney in these kind of moments where Chaney goes on that 9-0 run. Everyone was to Chaney on the block, everybody space out. Because Chaney was going to get to his spots no matter what. He's a big, strong guy now. He's not the guy he was last year, Auburn fans, but he is now. And he was getting to his spots. I thought that was the biggest key for him, was just getting to where he knew he could score the basketball and absolutely taking over from there.
Yeah, and there were points where there were no Auburn players open and Chaney Johnson had the ball and he just took it upon himself. There was a defender on him. He would just shoot over the defender and make that jumper. He did that multiple times. He did it and tied the game 45-45 when no one was open, just looked over the defender and had a jumper. So like you said, when Chaney Johnson found his spot, looked around, tried to distribute the ball, no one was open, he was able to make shots kind of out of nothing. And that led to him having the monster second half that he did.
And it's a great thing to see, because when he talked to us, he talked about not forcing anything. And when Broome came back, you saw a little bit less of that, oh, Chaney Johnson, he's forcing things, just because there wasn't the space for him to do that. And I don't think we're going to see that the rest of the year, because I think he figured that aspect out. You haven't seen Chaney force a shot in plenty of games here in this last couple of games, over this last stretch. He's found his role, and he's going to play it. And he played it like an A+ grade on a paper tonight. He played it perfectly. The story was written, and Chaney just put the final period at the end of the sentence to lock it in and submit that thing, because he really did. And it worked out for Auburn for sure.
Yeah, so Denver Jones had 21 points. Chaney Johnson had 20 points. The other Auburn Tiger in double figures was Johni Broome with 17 points. Now he had 2 coming out of the first half. So coming into halftime, able to score 15 points. It didn't really look like the Johni Broome we knew. Bruce Pearl has still talked about, he still is not 100% on that ankle, and you can tell, but to still come 15 points in the second half when Auburn was down was huge. He tied the game 47-47 with a shot. Had that insane dunk from Todd, and then after that dunk from Todd, had a block on the other end of the floor, that end slam 78-62. So kind of, again, Johni Broome is not 100%, and you can tell, but still to have 17 points is a good thing for Auburn, obviously. He had another double-double. He missed 10 shots, was 6 for 16, 5 for 10 in the second half. But good for him to step up in the second half and have 15 points in the second half.
Yeah, it was certainly the DJ and CJ game, but it always helps when you get some from JB4 too. It was a gritty game for him. He was, they looked like they were frustrating him a little bit, more like nothing came easy. Sometimes it looks like Johni can score the basketball so easy, gets that right shoulder, gets in motion, starts shooting step back threes. That's just the Johni we're used to seeing. But tonight, nothing came easy. Vanderbilt did a good job of throwing enough bodies at him to try to get him to take that slower step. There was smack talking. It looked like a little bit like the frustration was sort of bottling up in Johni, and I think he let that go. In the second half, he kind of got going. First half, like you said, was rough for him. He was 2 points. He was 1 for 6. But in the second half, I think Johni really, really turned it up. And that was really, really good to see. And I think similar to how you said it there, he doesn't look 100%. But we know that's not going to stop it. He wouldn't be playing if it was going to stop him. Obviously ends up 7 points in the second half, made his free throws half. I thought he was fine in the second half. He looked like Johni, which was a great, great thing, because after the first half, when the player seems frustrated and the offense outside of Denver wasn't all of that, you wanted to see that comeback half from Johni, and you certainly did see it. And that frustration is going to come. He's been, in my opinion, the National Player of the Year. You're getting everybody's 100%, 110% effort every single game. And he got that from Vandy tonight. And I think it's a great sign, because I think he overcame it in the second half. He didn't have to have a huge performance. Auburn didn't need that. He did what he needed to do, though. And in that second half, it was score the basketball, get a couple of dunks, be the silencer. And that's certainly what Broome did on that side of the floor.
I agree with you. In the first half, he definitely seemed frustrated, only had 2 points. It didn't really seem like anything was going his way. You can tell Vandy planned to shut him down because, in my opinion, too, National Player of the Year. But then again, coming out in the second half, scoring 15 points, kind of finding other people on the floor, making the best out of it when he's not 100%. So that is a big thing. But also, Tahad Pettiford, I thought, had a really good game. He had 9 points of his own, but I thought he did really good distributing the ball. So he had a part of that 15-0 lead. But then there was also crucial points where I felt that it was a Tahad Pettiford pass that kind of stopped either an Auburn slump or stopped a Vanderbilt run. So Auburn hadn't scored for 3 minutes, and Dylan Cardwell goes and, well, makes a shot, and it's a pass from Tahad. So Tahad was able to find Dylan Cardwell across the court, and then also had an assist to Johni on that insane dunk. And then there was a Denver turnover, back-to-back Vandy points. Tahad Pettiford goes and shoots a 3. So there were just crucial points during the game, either when Auburn was in a slump, like I said, when Dylan Cardwell Auburn didn't score for 3 minutes, or when Vandy was kind of going on a run when Tahad scores that 3. I felt like he made points in crucial moments and also was able to distribute it, whether it was to Dylan, whether it was to Johni, or someone else, which was good to see in a game where, like we said in the first half, Johni didn't have his best game, where Chad Baker-Mazara was 0 for 6 throughout this game. So that was good from Tahad Pettiford to see that.
Yeah, Tahad was the repeat responder tonight, I thought. For every Vanderbilt run, Zero had some sort of payback for him. And he was great tonight at knowing just where his guys were. You talked about that pass to Dylan for the jam. That was one Tahad threw before Dylan even looked at the ball. Dylan was halfway looking at the basket, halfway turning the ball, and he had just set a double screen and was rolling back to the basket. Tahad had come around and already thrown the pass, and it kind of just ended up right in Dylan's hands. He looked down, and there was the basketball, stumbled upon it, bounced it, and dunked it. But Tahad having a great feel for where his teammates were. And you mentioned that other one, the Tahad 3. That was a spot that Auburn so desperately needed it. Collins had to put back off the Denver Jones turnover. That was 2 points. Put back dunk because I think it was Chad Baker-Mazara maybe didn't pick up a defender and let him go right through. And Auburn needed something. That's when that run was happening. And there was Tahad, a lefty, pulling up for 3. like I said, he was the response for Auburn tonight. Typically, you'd see that be Miles or you'd see that be Johni. Tonight, it was Tahad. And not saying it can't be, because we've seen him have the biggest games in the biggest moments. But I thought he stepped up, and it might not be huge on the stat sheet. It might not be the Houston game kind of response that Tahad has had, but it was enough tonight. 9 points. Like you said, it was just the distributing factor, and it got everybody involved, which I thought was key.
Yeah, I've said this before, you can make 20 points, obviously 21 points against Houston for Tahad Pettiford, but it is making the points in the crucial minutes when he made the free throws against Texas. And tonight, like I said, when Vandy's going on a run, when Auburn's in a slump, he's making those crucial points. And also, Tahad Pettiford having a 4-point play. Like, I need to look up the record for Auburn having a record for how many 4-point plays are in college basketball, because we know Chad Baker-Mazara's had like a gazillion this season.
Right.
Not having another one tonight. Like, I think seriously, someone needs to look it up, or I will look it up and let everyone know next episode. What is the record for the amount of 4-point plays a team has had in a season? Just saying.
Seriously, it's bound to be an absurd number, from Denver to Miles to Tahad, and of course to the 4-point king himself, Chad Baker-Mazara. Another thing tonight, though, I mean, the amount of threes between Denver and Tahad, I think it's made up of something, and I think that something is Dylan Cardwell. You look at the offense and how Auburn runs their offense. Defenses, they have to tag Dylan Cardwell in the pick and roll. You don't want to let him roll to the basket, because if you do, that pass is going up and that dunk is coming down. And that's something that you don't want as a defense. The big man has to tag up. And when that happens, that leaves the wings. And usually when the wings are coming off a pick and roll, it's the point guard, who's either Tahad or Denver, kicking to a wing like Miles, or another guard, Tahad, Denver, Chad, one of those guys. Really, really opens up the floor for 3-point shots. And you saw that from Tahad tonight. You saw that from Denver. I thought it was a great showing, and I thought Dylan Cardwell was a huge piece of it. And that's another piece that I want to get into as well, because he was fantastic on defense tonight. Dylan Cardwell was. I thought he was the soldier. He was the captain of the defense, along with Miles Kelly. The defense in its entirety for the majority of the game. I won't say that stretch where Vandy came back, because that wasn't great defense. Vandy was handing it to Auburn during that stretch. I guess I'll start with Miles. Miles was a handful on defense tonight. He led the team in, I think it was steals. I mean, goodness. Oh, wait. No, he led the team in not threes. That's what I meant to say, because his plus minus was 18. That's what he led the team in. And he didn't make a bunch of threes tonight. He wasn't spraying it like his usual Miles Kelly self, but Miles actually scored the least points of the Tigers that scored. So his impact tonight, being 18 on the plus minus scale, was far beyond just the offensive end. I thought he made one of the biggest impacts on the floor defensively all night. Look at that 15-0 run. If you go back and watch it, you'll see there's 5 minutes straight where Vandy is playing 30-second offensive possessions every single time down the floor. And Miles Kelly had a lot to do with it. He was frustrating Huffman. I mean, in the half court, there was a play on that 15-0 run where Vandy, they had gotten good looks. They just hadn't knocked him down. And Miles Kelly didn't want him to get a good look. They were 20 seconds into the shot clock, and the guy hadn't even passed the 3-point line yet, because Miles Kelly was giving him such a hard time. Tried to pass it, went out of bounds, clock stops. That's the kind of defense Miles Kelly has had. And Stephen Pearl told us he's improving in every single game, in every single category. And tonight, I mean, you want a definition of that? It's tonight. He didn't even have to score. I know he hit the 3 early in the game. He didn't need to. He could have had 0 points and made the exact same impact, I thought, on the game. And his impact was so immensely positive. And I say to Dylan Cardwell, he's everywhere. He is just everywhere. If you try to find his red dot on a map, you can't, because it's always moving. You don't know whether he's guarding a 5'7" point guard or a 7'3" big man, because he can do it all. Chase the guards off the 3-point line, got blocks at the rim, chased guards into other guards and switched. He plays defense so smart. And I know Steven talked to us about Johni being able to use his body and how he moves to his advantage. He picks his times well. He gets to his spots. He does what he does to play the best defense that he can. Dylan Cardwell is a completely different build, but does the exact same things at an entirely new level. And to see 7 foot, 200 and however many large pounds that man is, move around the court like he does and guard every position 1 through 5 from half court to the baseline is absurd. If he's not I mean, if NBA scouts aren't licking their chops at this guy, go somewhere else for dinner, because this guy, I don't know where he comes from, but on defense, he is out of this world.
I just have to take note. I could never come up with the analogies that Vince Wolfram does. Like spew out. I don't know if he comes up with them before. I don't know. But Stephen Pearl called Dylan Cardwell the most athletic person on the team. And it is clear whether he's guarding a 7-foot center or whether he's guarding a 5'10" point guard, he is the one who's able to guard the shortest player on the team or the tallest person on the team. And then Miles Kelly, too. From him, he's known as the 3-point shooter, the best 3-point shooter on the team, but tonight his impact was defense. And I know there's the Alabama coach saying what defense wins championships, and that is true. There are certain points where offensive is the showy thing. When there's a 20-point game, when Johni has a 20-point game, then Auburn has how many blocks? Auburn has how many steals? Auburn is able to guard and shut down those things. And I think that's why that's the biggest thing. I think that bothers me with the whole, oh, Denver Jones should be benched because he went 0 for 4 against Florida, 0 for something. Defense wins championships. And that was tonight from Dylan Cardwell and Miles Kelly. And tonight, Denver Jones on the offensive side. But there are games where Denver Jones, yes, may go for 0 for 4. And obviously that is not what we want. But defensively, he's able to lock down some other players. So that's definitely an argument to be made, is that defense wins championships. And no, it's not the showy 20-point game, 25-point game. But there was a point in time where tonight, Miles Kelly, he was better defensively than he was offensively. And Auburn needed that.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to our conversation with Coach Burgomaster about their defense. And I guess a question I would have for him would be, in spurts, Auburn plays defense so well. That started that game, 15-0 run. At the end of the game, they held Vandy to 2 of 11 field goals in the last 2 minutes, before the 2-minute mark in the second half. That run helped build that lead just a little too much to where Vandy couldn't forge a real comeback. And I think that piecing together of when Auburn plays defense and piecing together those spurts will be the moment that Auburn reaches their peak. They haven't had a game this season, and you can correct me on this if you think I'm wrong on this. They haven't had a game this season where they've played fantastic defense from the jump ball to the buzzer at the end. They've had little lapses, whether it be 2-3 minutes where they let Houston get back in the game, or 2-3 minutes. I think maybe the only exception would be the Purdue game, because that was a manslaughter. That and Ohio State, I think those were both just defensive textbooks. That's what those were. But since, like, outside of those games, there's little pockets, 2-3 minutes. It's never 6 minutes. It's never 15 minutes. It's just little pockets that can really change the game, like letting Vanderbilt back in the game and making it a close game at halftime after being up like they were. Second half, building the lead that you did, a 9-0 Chaney Johnson run. But Vanderbilt still pushes a little bit for 2-3 minutes. That, once they clean that up, whoo, that's when they're going to turn it up and they're going to get really, really dangerous. And I think that time could be relatively soon if they keep playing these SEC opponents.
I agree with you. When they can have a game where they play so good offensively and so good defensively without any of those little tidbits, like against the Vanderbilt game. And I think a game where I think this really kind of clicked for Auburn, if Auburn could play this in every single game, was Oklahoma. Oklahoma, one of the best offensive teams in the SEC, Auburn kept them to under 75 points, and Auburn scored 90. And the big showy thing was that Auburn scored 90 points against Oklahoma, but also they kept Oklahoma to that many points. So that's definitely something to look forward to. And I agree with you on that, is when Auburn can combine Mike Burgomaster and Stephen Pearl, and all of the players can get on the same page and make like the magical potion. Like I said, I can't come up with analogies like Vince Wolfram, but just come up with something. And I think that will finally click for Auburn. And we've seen it during games. You said Purdue and Ohio State, I think Oklahoma, all of those games. And that's what makes this team the number one team in the country. Those games, obviously with their record and obviously coming back and not allowing Vandy to take over the win. But if Auburn could really play like they do in every single game in those games and just find that clicking thing where they can't let Vandy go on a run, and defensively they play as good as they can offensively, this team is going to go really, really far.
Something we've repeated game to game too is win the boards, you win the game. Tonight was a little bit of an exception in that category. On the defensively guard to guard and playing defense, Auburn was fantastic. On the defensive boards, though, it's another story.
Yeah, Auburn lost the rebounding battle by 8 and still won the game. Vanderbilt had 37 rebounds. Auburn had 29. So Vandy had 16 offensive rebounds to Auburn's 10. There's not one player on Auburn's team that had more than 2 offensive rebounds. Now, there are two players on Vanderbilt's teams, McLaughlin and Carey, who had 5 offensive rebounds each. So 2 players on Vandy's team had the same amount of rebounds as the entire Auburn team, offensive rebounds. So that cannot happen because that led Vandy to have 21 second chance points, whereas Auburn only had 15. So we always say you win the boards, you win the game. Tonight, that was not the case. So Auburn came off lucky with that. But there is in past games, Auburn has lost the rebounding battle and lost the game. So definitely something to look at for that because Auburn lost both offensive and defensive rebounding games. So, and a team that is usually really good off the glass.
Yeah, and I think one thing that you can kind of make parallel is if Auburn loses the rebounding battle and they win the game, they more than likely had less turnovers. That's a connection that I've seen throughout this season in games where Auburn has lost the rebounding battle, yet won the game. Turnovers have been the difference, and they were tonight. Vanderbilt, 12 turnovers, Auburn, 8. Points off turnovers, Auburn had 19, Vanderbilt had 12. So they got their numbers back in that category. Vanderbilt giving them, and Auburn's defense creating opportunities to go score that maybe wouldn't have been there otherwise, or maybe that would have been created through offensive rebounds and second chance points. I think that's what helped Auburn make up that difference tonight. But I mean, you would obviously love to see Johni Broome stay in that double streak category like he's been doing. Dylan Cardwell, I think it was just one of those games where Vanderbilt, they did shoot a lot and they shot a lot of threes and they didn't shoot them well. 3 for 17 from 3 for Vandy tonight. That means more rebounds, more long rebounds, which means Auburn's probably out of position because they're looking to get close rebounds. Long rebounds are tougher to get. That's also why I think you saw some of the guards get some rebounds tonight too. Tahad with 3. I mean, Denver got in there. Miles got in there. Chris Moore got in there. You saw the rebounds get a little widely spread. And I think primarily it was from Vanderbilt missing a lot of threes too.
Yeah, Bruce Pearl is the one who always says you win the boards, you win the game. So I don't think, especially against heading into Alabama this weekend, I don't think Auburn, unless Auburn loses, but definitely that's going to be something that they hone in on practice is winning the rebounding battle because that is something that Bruce Pearl is very specific on. And I think that is something that this team kind of knows better. So coming into Alabama, I'm looking forward to see how aggressive they are in the rebounding battle.
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard that word that JoJo just said. Up next, the state takeover game, just 3 hours across the way from Auburn. Number 1 versus number 2, or depending which poll you look at, number 1 versus number 2. Auburn versus Alabama, the IBOB, Iron Bowl of basketball. It's back. It's ready for Saturday. I'm amped. I know the rest of the country is too. I think it's the first time game day has gone to a number 1 versus number 2 matchup since Memphis versus Tennessee in 2008. And Auburn faithful, you will not believe who is the head coach of the Tennessee Volunteers in 2008. Drumroll, please, Bruce Pearl. And guess what? They're back. That game is set for Saturday, 3 p.m. in Tuscaloosa. Tickets are going for as low as $289, pushing $300. This game is going to be absolutely bonkers.
It is wild to me that both of these matchups for college game day are in state, Memphis, Tennessee, Auburn, Alabama. But what is also wild to me is that Auburn and Alabama football haven't even played each other number 1 and number 2, and Auburn basketball is going to. So for a conference football schools, football conference, basketball is saying, hello. I'm so excited for this game, especially because there is someone whose name may not be mentioned on Alabama, who he is their 3rd leading scorer, averaging around 11.5 points. Alabama has one of the best point guards in the SEC, if not college basketball, in Mark Sears. He averages nearly 18 points. And then Grant Nelson, who was everyone's worst nightmare in March with the mustache and then also scoring, but nearly 13 points per game. Yeah, I'm an Auburn fan, so I'm going to rip on Alabama, and I'm not going to mention his name unless he scores like 30 points, and then I'm going to come back with a sad face on, but
the Grant Nelson mustache was a good pull from you there. That was good stuff. No, I mean, it's what I look at when I see him too, but regardless, from a hoop fan in general, this game has this is Thanksgiving dinner for basketball fans. It has everything that you could want in a game. I mean, point guard matchup, you have Denver Jones, who's one of the best on-ball defenders in all of college basketball, guarding averaging almost 18 points a game, guarding Aiden Holloway, almost 12 points a game. I said the name, Voldemort, whatever you want to do. Rebounds, Grant Nelson, one of the toughest, grittiest guys that there is in college basketball. guarding a guy like Johni Broome, trying to compete with as big of a body as Dylan Cardwell, passing the ball too. The bigs, they can pass the ball, but so can the guards. You look at Miles Kelly getting baskets. Defensively, they're tough. You look at Philon. He's a tough defender, averages a steal a game. Grant Nelson can block the ball at the rim too. Auburn has blocks. There's so many parallels to both of these teams. I think right now it's tough to pick where the game's going to go because you just don't know. Alabama is so they can have an outpouring or they can miss a lot of shots and they're in trouble. Where Auburn is, I feel like in a way they're more steady than that. They don't rely as much on one thing. Whereas if that one thing doesn't go their way, because they don't have that one thing, they have a bunch of things and a deeper bench, I think, than Alabama, which may end up being a bigger piece than some expect. Just the endurance aspect of it. You got to think how fast and how many times these teams both shoot the rock. And Alabama shoots it. They have a quick offense, a fiery offense. They like to get up quick shots, usually from distance. So defense and defensive rebounding are something I'm sure Auburn is going to hone in on in a major way this week. Vanderbilt, like I just talked about, the steals and turnovers, but also long rebounds. That's something Auburn has to prepare for with the sheer amount of threes that Alabama shoots in basketball games. And it's hard to compare the schedules too, because in the SEC, you feel like everybody's beating everybody. This person's lost to this person. Everybody and their mama's confused on who's lost to who. Alabama's beaten good teams. That's what it is. Auburn's beaten the most quad one opponents this season by a lot, but Alabama's not too far behind them. Beat Mississippi State, beat Kentucky at Kentucky, beat Texas A&M, beat Oklahoma when they were ranked number 12, beat North Carolina, beat Creighton, beat Rutgers, beat Houston in overtime, beat Illinois. They lost to Purdue, who Auburn rolled by 6 trillion. But good games. They've beaten good teams. So for the Auburn fans, it's like, hey, yeah, we're going to beat Alabama. Get your popcorn. It's going to be a great game.
Yeah, this is one that every Auburn fan has had circled on their calendar. I mean, the matchups you just mentioned, Mark Sears, Denver Jones, Aiden Holloway, and Miles Kelly, Chad Baker-Mazar. I just said his name. I didn't realize that we need the Voldemort meme. Grant Nelson, and then just Philon, freshman on freshman, Philon and Pettiford. Philon, who was another trader, was committed to Auburn and then flipped to Alabama. So there's a bunch of traders on Alabama's team. But for our realness, I am so excited for this game. This is two really, really, really good basketball teams. And the Iron Bowl is always crazy, even if it's football or basketball. I mean, football, Auburn has these past few years has been atrocious. And then we almost win, 4th and 31. We almost win 4 overtimes, Bryce Young. So you never know what's going to happen. The fact that it's number 1 and number 2 college basketball, Iron Bowl, there's still going to be another game. So there's going to be a rematch when these teams play in Neville Arena. This one's in Tuscaloosa, but this is a game that every Auburn fan, every Alabama has had circled on their calendar. And it is like blood, sweat, and tears. Like there's going to be bloodshed, tears. It's going to be crazy. So I know I'm excited for this one. It is going to be insane.
Yeah, this one in March 8th. Two games Auburn fans most certainly have circled in blood on their calendar. And just some history on a number 1 versus number 2 matchup. And Auburn fans, Alabama fans, whoever's listening, take this as you will, because it's a rivalry game too. Add that into being number 1 versus number 2, and golly, anything in the world could happen. But historically, in number 1 versus number 2 matchups, the number 1 team has a record of 23-21 and is 3-7 in true road games. The number 2 team has won 8 of the last 13 matchups. So I guess depending on which poll that you believe in and that you put your heart on a stake for, either the AP poll, whatever it may be, Alabama's 1-1, Auburn's 1-1. So what you will with that information, who's number 1, who's number 2, I don't care. Polls don't mean anything to me other than where the ranked teams in terms of what games are coming up. But take what you will with that information. That one is set for Saturday. I'm amped for it. I'll hopefully be there if my credential gets approved, because so much national media might kick me out. But we're just going to have to see. I hope I'm in the building. Can imagine it's not going to be sweatshirt weather. I bet it'll be hot, blue blazes in there. So I think it's going to be an absolute nutcase game. I think it's going to be crazy.
I don't know how many times me and you both just said how excited we are for this game, but it was most definitely a gazillion times.
Yeah, I'm amped. I'll leave it at that. I am amped. But I guess first, I was happy that Auburn didn't overlook Vanderbilt because of all the buzz circling this Auburn-Alabama matchup in Tuscaloosa. Alabama putting a whooping on Texas right now. So it looks like they're both going to be coming in off of wins, which is a great thing. But at the end of the day, on this Tuesday, February 11th, the number one ranked AP poll, number one ranked Auburn Tigers beat Vanderbilt 80-68. JoJo, our toasts for today before we leave on this episode. You can start it off. Who gets the CAVANAGH toast of the game?
So I feel like I'm a disjustice if I pick an Auburn person, but it's also a disjustice if I don't give it to Chaney and Johnson. We don't win this game without Chaney Johnson. 20 points, scored 9 straight when Auburn was down against Vanderbilt. So I am toasting to Chaney Johnson, but I will come up with another toast just because I feel like Auburn fans expect me to always say Chaney Johnson or an Auburn person, but I'm not going to pick college basketball. So I'm going to go to my Knicks. Karl Anthony Towns, 40-point bomb against the Pacers, and especially because we lost against the Pacers in the playoffs. Still makes me really angry. But Karl Anthony Towns wasn't a Knick then, so I want to see the Pacers again because Karl Anthony Towns is an animal. And you said in our first Straight Out the Jungle episode, he would quickly become my favorite Knick. And while I do still love Josh Hart, the big bodega is fighting for that spot because I love some Karl Anthony Towns. That's all I'm going to say. What about you?
On a day where Karl Anthony Towns has a great day, the Kentucky Wildcats go and beat Tennessee too. So double whammy for the cat tree there. As much as I love college basketball, there was an end of a season that came on Sunday, and it had to be the Kansas City Chiefs loss.
Oh, we're not doing it
To
dramatic.
my Philadelphia Eagles, 40-22. Super Bowl champions, the Philadelphia Eagles. Jalen Hurts is the MVP. A.J. Brown, inner excellence. Cooper DeJean representing for the people. That boy had a great pick six touchdown. I was on cloud 9. I was not one who rolled Toomer's corner, though. That is an interesting thing. While some polls were scared of me, as most polls are of Philly fans, that remains true. Go Eagles, go Birds, Super Bowl champs, a great way to put a bow on a fantastic season where people doubted Sirianni after week 4, after going 2-2. Not me. I rocked with Baldiani, rocked with Hurts, and here we are sitting in the end zone, Super Bowl champs. Let the confetti fall.
I'm going to let him enjoy this because my Jets just hired a new head coach, but then Aaron Rodgers isn't going to be a Jet because we told him he couldn't go on the Pat McAfee show. So I'm just riding with Karl Anthony Towns at this moment. I can't talk about football.
That's okay. And I'm done with football for the rest of the year. While you might see some more Eagles t-shirts from me, it's basketball season. So let's zip this back up and let's get back into basketball talk. Go Birds. I'll leave it at that. Super Bowl champs and Auburn of the North champs tonight. Shout out Auburn of the North. You see this if you're watching. Repost to let us know that you're from Nashville and that you were at the game tonight because you guys really showed out. I will say that.
Shout out Auburn North. But before, we just talked a lot about Alabama, but before we have that recap, we will have another interview dropping like we hope for you guys. Last week was all defense. This week, we're focusing on offense. We will be talking to the offensive coordinator, Mike Burgermaster. So one of the best offensive minds in college basketball. Super excited to hear what he has to say about this team, offense, and just all things Auburn basketball. So that will be headed to your way before the Alabama game.
Burgomaster Meisterberger, the GOAT. He is the brains of the Auburn operation, and he helped Auburn improve to 14-0 against unranked opponents tonight and stay undefeated in league play away from home tonight. So shout out to Burgo. We're going to have that coming. So if you basketball nerds are here, be ready. It's going to be cooking. It's going to be awesome, and we're very excited for it. But we're also very excited for another Auburn win. 80-68 in Nashville over Vanderbilt. The Auburn Tigers starting a new streak. 1-0 in their new win streak here. So hopefully we'll see maybe that trend continue heading into the weekend. We might just have to wait and see.
Yeah, Auburn 6-0 on the road in SEC play. Best start under Bruce Pearl. So we'll see if that can move to 7-0 in Tuscaloosa on Saturday.
I hope so. We will have that recap for you on Saturday after the game. And for this episode of Straight Out of the Jungle, my name is Vince Wolfram.
And I'm JoJo CAVANAGH.
Good night and War Eagle.
War Eagle.